This is a short video lecture pertaining to water resources and water pollution. On the screen in front of you is a list of key terms that you should be familiar with from the readings that you've done thus far. The key concepts we're going to cover in this short video lecture pertains to major quantity and quality issues for surface water resources and major quantity and quality issues pertaining to groundwater resources. I will discuss the types, sources, and effects of water pollutants, as well as ways that we can reduce and prevent water pollution, and we will talk briefly about drinking water quality. Water quantity and water quality are two different terms. Water quantity relates to the amount of water available to meet our desired demands. Water quality refers to the purity of the water and whether or not the water is pure enough to fulfill the requirements of the various uses. The graphic in front of you depicts that 97% of the water on our Earth is caught up in oceans. This is all salt water. Only 3% is considered to be fresh water, and as you look to the right of the graphic, that 3% breaks down as follows. 69% of it is found in glaciers and ice. 30% is found in groundwater, and less than 1% is found in lakes and rivers. Hence, less than 1% of the fresh water is available in usable form for us as people. That's not much. This then makes it even more important for us to protect our freshwater supplies in our lakes, rivers, and groundwater. Globally, our water withdrawal and use falls into the following three categories. 70% of the water use is for agriculture, 19% of the water use is for industry, and 11% of the water use is for domestic urban residential. The pie charts on this graphic depict the percentage of uses for agriculture, domestic, and industrial. The green color refers to agricultural use, the tan color pertains to industrial use, and the blue color pertains to domestic urban residential use. So for example, in the United States, it appears that 44% of the water is being used for agriculture, and 41% is industry, and 15% is urban residential. So agriculture and industry are somewhat similar in terms of water use in the United States as opposed to what we saw for the world. It was 70% for agriculture and 19% for industry. If we look at other countries such as Africa, 86% of the water use is for agriculture and only 4% for industry and 10% for urban residential. And then if we look at Europe, less is used for agriculture, only 29%, and more is used for industry, 55%. And then 16% is used for urban residential uses. So Europe is more focused on water usage from an industry standpoint than agricultural standpoint, as opposed to the United States or Africa or even South America using more water for agriculture than industry. Similarly, Australia uses more water in agriculture than industry as well. And the same holds true for Asia. This part of the graphic down here in the bottom left corner depicts the percent of total population using improved drinking water resources. So if it's colored blue, it means that more than 90% of the people living in that country have access to improved drinking water sources. If it's colored green, that it means between 76 to 90% of the people living in that country have access to improved drinking water resources. If it's colored yellow, then between 50% to 75% of the people have access to improved drinking water resources. And then if it's colored red, that means that less than 50% of the population has access to improved drinking water resources. The remaining part of this figure depicts various historical events which document water conflicts that occurred as a result of lack of water availability or fighting over the water resources for a particular region. So let's start here in 1978. Egypt threatens Ethiopia over the Nile River and plans to change withdrawals and flow amounts within the Nile. In 1982, 177 people were killed over a protest regarding a dam in Central America. In 1999, there were villagers killed in Yemen due to a conflict pertaining to water resource availability. In 2004-2006, 250 people were killed in Ethiopia during a violence situation that arose over a water shortage. In 2007, in Australia, a man was murdered because of fighting over water restrictions. Also in 2007, people were injured at a protest over the allocation of water to industry in India. In addition, in 2007, there were water conflicts between herders and farmers in Burkina Faso in Africa. And then in 2010, we have Pakistan irrigation dispute between tribes, which kills 116 people. So various incidences have happened regarding water conflicts throughout the world, and it's projected that these are going to continue to occur as water scarcity becomes a further issue, and in fact climate change causing even more disruption to water availability. So I'd like to bring back to your attention the Millennium Development Goals that we did mention in an earlier short video lecture. Please recall that the Millennium Development Goals were established at the UN Millennium Summit in 2000. There were 8 goals with 17 targets. The MDGs were not focused on economic development, but rather to address extreme poverty. And this is being accomplished by the United Nations, non-government organizations, and various government agencies. Please note goal number 7, which is focusing on ensuring environmental sustainability. Target 12 of goal number 7 was to reduce by half the proportion of people without suitable access to safe drinking water and basic sanitation. This goal for water safety was actually achieved 5 years early, but the sanitation aspect of it is still not available for many. In fact, more than 600 million people still lack access to safe drinking water in 2015. And the MDG target on sanitation is unlikely to be met with the 2.5 billion people without improved sanitation facilities. So we have met the target for reducing half the proportion of people without sustainable access to safe drinking water, but yet we still do have 2.5 million people that don't have access. And then even more people, 2.5 billion people, without improved sanitation facilities. So basically what's happened is increased investment in infrastructure, capacity building, and regulation are needed. There's an estimated 800,000 children that are younger than 5 years of age that get sick and die because of diarrhea each year. This is occurring mainly in our developing countries. This amounts to about 11% of the 7.6 million deaths of children under the age of 5. It means about 2,200 children are dying every day because of being sick and having diarrhea. The source of this is unsafe drinking water, or inadequate availability of water for hygiene, and lack of access to sanitation altogether contribute to about 88% of the deaths that are occurring because of diarrhea. Also, worldwide, there's millions of people that are infected and with neglected tropical diseases, many of which are water or hygiene related, such as the guinea worm disease, the Buroli ulcer, trachoma, and schistosomiosis. These diseases are most often found in places with unsafe drinking water, poor sanitation, and insufficient hygiene practices. The guinea worm disease is extremely painful. It's a parasitic infection that spreads through contaminated drinking water. The guinea worm disease is characterized by a spaghetti-like worm that's up to 1 meter in length that slowly emerges from the human body through blisters on the skin anywhere on the body, but usually on the lower legs or lower arms. This infection affects poor communities in remote parts of Africa that do not have safe water to drink. In 2015, 22 cases of guinea worm disease were reported, and most of those cases were found in Chad in Africa. Trachoma, which I mentioned earlier, is the world's leading cause of preventable blindness, and this too results from poor hygiene and sanitation. Approximately 41 million people suffer from active trachoma, and nearly 10 million people are visually impaired or irreversibly blind as a result of this disease. The trachoma infection can be prevented through increased facial cleanliness with soap and clean water and improved sanitation. So guinea worm disease and trachoma and these diseases that I've mentioned so far are really being caused by pathogens that are in the water that people are drinking. And pathogens come from human and animal feces. The lack of access to sanitation is leading to people being exposed to these pathogens. So improved sanitation would help these poor communities. Just using a simple point of use disinfection in some of these poorer countries would result in improved drinking water quality that would lead to about a 45% reduction in diarrhea episodes. So 1 out of every 6 people doesn't have sufficient access to clean water, and this is still a global health issue, even though we're trying to cut this in half based on the United Nations Millennium Development Goals. About 4,000 children are dying each day under the age of 5 because of these waterborne diseases coming from human or animal feces. The only way to deal with it is to provide improved water supply and sanitation. It is the single most cost-effective means of reducing water-related death and disease globally. So this slide shows some solutions to the problems regarding water quality around the world. Safe water interventions have vast potential to transform the lives of millions of people. Water filtration tools not only provide safe drinking water, but they also have positive health impact on the most vulnerable populations, including young children, pregnant women, and those with debilitated immune systems. So, some examples here. Solar-powered water purifiers. These use zinc oxide and titanium dioxide in containers that are exposed to UV radiation, and they cleanse the water before people drink it. Also, putting in place leak monitors or sensors that can be used to detect when droplets of water are dripping from a tub, a sink, or a toilet. This would help allow water use to be more efficient without the loss of water in areas where water scarcity is already a problem. CO2 cleaning is when CO2 is propelled out of a nozzle in solid form to clean the water. This too would sanitize it as well. So there's many ways that we can do this. Water sanitation in developing countries is definitely something we should push for, where we create the opportunity for people to gain affordable, safe drinking water that can help provide healthier lives for them. And then improve ways for water treatment and distribution in these countries. Basically having a plan in place to clean the water from the harmful bacteria and then distribute that water to the people that need it. And then lastly, water filters. In 2006, the Cochrane Review demonstrated that water filters are the most effective intervention amongst all point-of-use water treatment methods for reducing diarrhea diseases. The study also proved that it's not enough just to treat the water at the point of source, but it also must be made safe at the point of consumption. So an example that I provided in the picture here is Life Straws. These are point-of-use filters, truly unique, and they can address the concerns for affordably obtaining safe drinking water right at the point of use. And finally, this graphic just gives you details based on the different countries in terms of how many people are without sanitary facilities and how many people are without drinking water. And South Asia, as well as Africa and East Asia, are the countries that are experiencing this the most. So all this being said, a few key statistics. About 1/5 of our global population faces water scarcity. About 1/4 of our world's population faces economic water shortage. And water use has increased more than twice more than the population increase. So a combination of the lack of water plus water increased usage is resulting in difficulty with water availability in some areas. And this graphic depicts areas of water scarcity in red and orange and stress as well. The areas in blue, there's enough water, but the areas in tan, orange, dark orange, or red are areas which definitely have water problems going on. Water scarcity is depicted in this figure, and water scarcity is caused by dry climate, drought, overuse, inefficient use, and using water faster than it can be replenished. Water scarcity is both a natural and human-made phenomena.